Hi, I'm Darlene Washington, and this is Spiritually Intriguing, the Church Edition. Here we are once again with Reverend Dr. Virgil Woods of Grant Memorial AME Church. Reverend Dr. Woods.
Thank you, Darlene.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right in because, we want to keep this thing moving. One of the things that's taking place right now is a discussion on the legalization of pot.
Lord.
Or weed or marijuana or whatever you want to call it these days. Should America legalize pot? How would legalization of pot affect laws like drunk driving, etc.? Imagine trying to deal with someone who is under the influence of marijuana. Would you get any answers? What impact would this have on today's children? There's so many questions that need to be answered in terms of the legalization of pot. But I have my own reasonability as to why I feel like it should be legalized. But I want to know what Reverend Woods thinks.
Well, I saw that question on the list, Darlene, and I chuckled. I think that question is a multifaceted question.
It is.
I think that there's a moral question. I think there's a legal question, and then I think there might be kind of a social or societal question. From a moral standpoint, should pot be legalized? Well, the legal issue is probably a misnomer. The issue for me from a moral standpoint is it's not good stewardship over our bodies. Our body is the temple of God. We want to take care of our temples. We want to take care of our resources. It's not free, so what else could I be spending my money on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I understand all that. What brings it into question is that they're now finding medicinal purposes, and they're finding that it is actually helping people medicinally in certain situations, which I think brings the whole moral question back into question of if somebody is hurting and I clearly have this that will help them. I mean, is there a moral responsibility for me to provide some type of relief to this person who has tuberculosis, AIDS, multiple sclerosis? I mean, what the other things that they list on the list? I mean, shouldn't this person be able to? And I think they should. I think it should be made available to them in that respect. The legal question for me becomes then a greater question of how do you see the role of the government? If you see the role of the government as telling us what's best for us, then they should say what we should and shouldn't have. If you see the role of the government as serving the people, well, most of the polls have said that we're now well beyond 50% think it should be legalized. Well, if they're here to serve the people and that's the voice of the people, then I think it's a no-brainer that they should legalize it. The interesting thing is how it's coming on the table, but we haven't had all the same discussion around alcohol, and we haven't had the same discussion necessarily around tobacco, because those were kind of the pillars that our country built a whole lot of money on. So from a legal standpoint, I know that here in Chicago, the rationale was that police officers were being bogged down and the judicial system was being bogged down with petty charges of marijuana, and that same time could be better used pursuing criminals, murderers, hard drug dealers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I do subscribe to that. I grew up around weed, crack, alcohol, all that was around me. And I ain't gonna lie, the weed heads weren't the violent ones, okay? It was the ones that was drinking, I'm gonna be honest with you. They was the ones always talking about, we can fight right now, But I mean, you're talking about bogging a judicial system down with crimes that have minimal impact on people outside of the person who's committing the crime. So if I'm smoking weed and we're smoking weed, we're not really doing much to hurt society per se within ourselves. Versus if we go rob somebody, I'm inflicting harm, on society. I would much rather see police resources placed there than to be chasing my 75-year-old uncle who decided he wanted to smoke some weed before he watched the football game. Versus this brother over here who's been on bait card 3 times because he keeps breaking in cars on the west side and stealing them and taking them to chop shops. I mean, if it's a matter of legal and priorities, I see it like that. In an ideal world, would we have to make those decisions? hope, no, we wouldn't. But in our world, we have limited resources. I don't think, and this is just my own opinion, my own experience, I don't think it's a healthy use of resources for us to keep going down those paths. I did read recently that Colorado actually generated a bunch of tax dollars off of having it legal, which was interesting because we're always crying broke over here in Illinois. But I also have started to read that they're having some issues coming through the cracks on just how to regulate it, how to deal with all of it and whatnot. I'm, again, going back to some of the things we discussed on the earlier episodes, I'm a proponent of freedom. You know what I mean? And so, I believe that if that's your decision, then that should be the decision that you're allowed to make. That if I want to put that in my body, then that should be the decision that I'm allowed to make. So from a moral standpoint, I don't have to agree with it.
Right.
But from a legal standpoint, I will defend someone's right to make their own decisions about their own life, because I don't want you to make those decisions about my life.
Right.
What if you come along and say that it is no longer good for you to take communion in churches, and that's bad for you? I'm not going to allow you to take that away from me.
Exactly.
I need that freedom.
Right.
And so I know that seems like a far stretch from marijuana, obviously, but I think that the issue for me is the freedoms more than the marijuana issue itself.
Right, and I totally agree with you. Because my issue with the whole marijuana thing is now, Lady Gaga, she's a singer, for who doesn't know Lady Gaga, but anyway, she admitted that she was addicted to smoking weed, and she said she had to actually get help for this. And so, but much like weed can be addictive, alcoholism can be addictive, food can be addictive, anything can be an addiction. All good things are done in moderation. So anything that we allow to abuse and harm our bodies is upon us. My whole issue with this thing is we have people, as you said, the legal resources that are being used up to house people who were selling weed or who smoked weed and all of this kind of stuff is just ridiculous. And then the minorities suffer greatly compared to other components of society.
We're more likely to be arrested, and I didn't even go into that, but that's a whole nother thing. But I will say this, and if I may, the real issue here is, and I love the fact that the Muslim faith stresses knowledge of self, because I think that we have to get away from telling people the rules and getting people to be wise enough to generate their own rules. What do I mean by that? I got one friend I went through college with. This boy smoked weed all through college, and he graduated with a 3.9. If I tried to do the same thing he did, I would have never made it. You see what I'm saying? I got a friend who's a mentor to me, an adult who drinks every day. Functional alcoholic.
Okay.
He pays bills, plenty of money. I mean, wonderful guy. That's what he does. When he gets off work, he gonna drink his glass of Johnny Walker Red. He gonna watch a game. He gonna go to sleep, get him to do work next day. Family taken care of, very responsible, Christian brother, everything. That works for him. Okay. If I tried that wouldn't work for me. So is it a matter of, could it be that some things that work for some people don't work for others? Instead of trying to make an absolute rule that applies to everybody, let's start to learn to look at ourselves. Now, the Bible doesn't say don't buy shoes.
Right.
I know some brothers that need to quit buying some shoes.
I appreciate that.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, knowledge of self would say, I don't need to buy any shoes because I see how this is impacting my world.
Right.
But the Bible's not going to tell you not to buy shoes.
Right, it's not.
So we've got people walking around going, I'm holy because I don't murder, I don't steal, and I don't cheat. But they're not seeing the other sins in their life because we haven't been taught to be that self-reflective. The flip side that the church ain't going to be ready for then is, what about the stuff that you deem as bad, like drinking, that other people have said, well, I can have my glass of wine every day and it does not stop me from being a healthy citizen.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That might not be my vice or my downfall.
Exactly.
So again, I think some of this really goes down to the individuals. If I have AIDS and this marijuana is helping me cope with that, could it be that it might be right for them, but not right for you?
Yeah, like
you see what I'm saying?
Like
so does the answer have to be an absolute blanket for everybody?
No,
and I don't think so.
It doesn't.
And that's why I say, for me, ethically, I take it beyond the weed and beyond the alcohol, and say there's so many other things that the Bible does not address that we miss, like playing video games.
Right.
The Bible ain't gonna tell you to not play video games, but if you ain't got no sense to tell your child to quit playing them games, come on.
Be lost in video.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people need to quit buying shoes.
Yeah.
Some people need to quit buying cars.
Right.
Some people need to turn rap music off. It all comes down to, how is it impacting me?
Right. Right.
I could listen to Young Jeezy all day. I don't feel like shooting nobody. But this young man might listen to Young Jeezy and get tendencies by the end of the night. You know what I'm saying? So again, it might be okay for me, but not okay. I don't think it's an absolute.
Right.
But I do say this. I will say this. I think that the government needs to come to the point where, again, if we're here to serve the people, if that's what the people want, you know, I'm not for same-sex marriage. I know this is not on the list.
Right.
I'm not for same-sex marriage, but I will defend someone's right to marry who they want.
Right.
Now, if you want to have a moral theological discussion, we'll have a different conversation.
Right.
But from a legal social standpoint, I'm going to defend your right. And that's what I say with the marijuana. I'm going to defend your right to do what you want to do, because I don't want nobody telling me what to do, especially when it comes to my religion.
Exactly. Don't come over in my camp. I'm not in your camp.
Right.
So
but at the end of the day, I mean, I have my own personals, which I have not shared yet.
Yeah.
But I have my own personals. But I think everybody has the right to their own personals.
Right.
And that's why I would defend.
No, I agree with that. So the question now is we're going to go over to another topic, which is Jonathan. I think his name is Jonathan Martin. And there's a guy incognito who has been harassing him, and I did not prep you for this, but this is the question that I want to talk about. Okay, so I hope you.
I did not get prepped for this.
Do you know anything about this particular issue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, basically, what's going on is it's Miami Dolphins. And they have a team, obviously, and they do some hazing on this team that they shouldn't be doing. And this incognito character seems to have taken it too far, and some of the other members. And there's been some racial slurs and things of this nature. The poor guy, Jonathan Martin, please, I'm not sure that's his name, but I know his last name is Martin. But the poor guy was so devastated by the whole hazing and the racial tendencies that were coming about from some of the texts and things that were happening, as well as physical assaults. He quit the team. He's like, bye. He got a lawyer. He's like, I'm suing you people. I'm just sick and tired of this stuff. So he's either suing, I think he's suing the Miami Dolphins, or he's suing incognito. One of those people. He's after him. He's like, you ruined my life, people. You know, leave me alone. So my question is, how does this happen? How does this happen in such a professional organization that has millions and millions of dollars, that they would allow this type of behavior to take place? And what could Jonathan Martin have done other than quit? You know, to save his job. What could he have done? You know, it's like, did he run from something that could have been resolved internally?
Yeah, I'm not a Dolphin. You know, I'm a Chicago Bear. But no,
so am I.
You know, I think
Bears.
You know, because you see this same thing in fraternities. Mm-hmm. You've seen it in sororities. We've seen it in bands. We've seen it. I mean, you see it across the board. I think at the end of the day, it's all up to the individual. Dr. Phil, one of his rules of life is that you have to teach people how to treat you.
Right.
And you know, I think it can kind of fall somewhat under that.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate because he probably really dreamed of being an NFL player, and had those aspirations. I think the sad part is that he may be labeled, just hearing your story, and I did hear a little bit about it once you got started. Yeah. You know, he may be labeled as being a punk or something like that in such a manly sport. You know, so I guess that would be the fear if you quit. You know, that I'd be looked at as being less than because I didn't want to go through this process.
If he joins another team, how are they going to treat him now?
Yeah,
you know?
and I think it's unfortunate. You know, because it is the professional football league that it's not being, that things aren't being conducted in a professional manner. Right. But to be honest with you, I'm not surprised. I just hate to say it like that. You know, I could say there was some degree of hazing coming into the ministry. You know, I'm an alpha, as you can see. You know, and Kappas and Qs, all of us have been on the news at some point about something. Right. And sororities is just the same. Right. So, you know, the FAMU band, the 100 band, they had an issue. Like I said, it's just organizations. I think what's even scarier is that people's desire to belong to a group is so great that they are willing to tolerate and put up with almost anything in order to get in. And it may even be more a question of identity and self-identity and self-esteem that we're coming in unhealthy in the beginning. Right. And so because we're unhealthy in the beginning, we're willing to tolerate unhealthy behavior. Right. And trying to be part of something that we think we need to be a part of.
Right. And I think I want to commend Jonathan Martin for stepping out and speaking out against what was going on. But on the other hand, I know there's going to be a lot of backlash against him for that. You know, I'm thinking he's going to join another team and then call him crybaby, whatever. You know, I don't feel like it's ever going to stop now. And that is a shame, because no one should have to be pushed past a certain limit. You come to play a sport. And I think he was a pretty good player. So you come to play a sport, to enjoy that sport, and then you're going to be made uncomfortable on a daily basis just for having a love of wanting to do something. So like what you said, you have to decide, what do I want more? To be a part of this group and this activity, or to love myself and appreciate, you know, who I am. So hats off to him for making that decision. But, you know, I pray that he's able to join another team, or, you know, if he goes back to the Dolphins, but that he gets a chance to make his life the way he was intending it to be, as a part of the National Football League. Yeah. Okay, well, that does it for this issue of Spiritually Intriguing, the Church Edition. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.